How's it going today, guys? Welcome back to the training room. Do you have a plasticville building that you bought and it kind of looks like this, and you want it to look a little more rustic and fit into your layout? Well, stay tuned. I'm going to show you exactly how I took this to this in a couple simple steps. First things first, what you're going to need is the paint. Now, this isn't anything special. I picked it up from Walmart, I think for 62-70 cents a bottle. This is just the Apple Barrel brand, but the one thing that you want to make sure that you're getting is you want matte paint. So I made the mistake of getting gloss brown before, and I wondered why all my accents that I was painting weren't really coming out correctly or the way I wanted them. And it wasn't until I really looked at the paint bottles that I bought gloss instead of matte. So I had to go back and repaint all of those. The other thing is I always get a black to add to any of the colors to make them a little bit darker, almost like a little grungier, things like that. And then I just went with, some basic red and blue, depending on what is on the building. So the next thing I would do is look at my building that I'm going to be painting. And if you look closely, there is some wood here. This is wood siding. This is wood siding, but then it also has what looks to be metal plates here, metal plates here, some patch job of wood there, a metal plate there, and metal plate, a gas sign, a sign that says eat. And so those are the things that I want to stand out. So first, what I'm going to do is paint the entire side or face of the building, and then after it's all covered, then I'll go in on the accents and decide which color I'm going to do. So obviously that's where you want the medium gray for the plates. Maybe you want to outline the gas or the eat in red or blue, things like that. And then any of the patch job planks that are in there, you want them to be a different color than your background because it's not meant to fit right in. You want it to stand out just a little bit. The next thing is some paintbrushes. Again, didn't have to go super expensive. These were really cheap, and I've gotten my money's worth out of them. So just a couple different levels. This one is a little bit wider, helps me cover more area. And these ones are a little bit finer, but not super fine where, you would get into a lot of detail stuff. And then I did pick up a couple detail brushes. See if we can focus there. And, this lets me get in and do the finer things. So when I did this barrel, it has some gears, some wood sticking out of it, and I just wanted to go in and get to it, but I was able to with this brush. And it's always nice to have something like that in your toolbox. And then the next thing is kind of what I was telling you about the cheat code on weathering is this. It's Folk Art brand, matte, but it is burnt umber paint. And what that is adds the dirtiness to it. This is a barrel that I did, and it just makes it look rusted. And all I do is put it on in my paint cup and then dab the dauber in, and then I'll lay a piece of paper towel out and dab it down just to get a majority of the paint off. And then I'll go and dab it on the product of what I'm doing to kind of simulate the rust. This is a car that I made for my trailer park. And as you can see, it looks like it's been sitting out in the field for a while, not taken care of. But this is the burnt umber, and it's just blotched on there, and however thick or thin you want to do it, but it really adds that grunginess look to it, and makes it just a little bit more believable that, you know, on the naked eye, that it's rust. What I've got here is I mixed the nutmeg brown, I mixed a ivy green, and just a dab of black. And we're going to see how that looks. Nice thing about this is once you paint over it, if you don't like it, you can just reapply. So I'm going to try this as my base coat and see what color that gives us. Like I said, I'm going for that grunginess look. You know, it's been sitting by a railroad. This is kind of going to be a hobo building, and you know, making a hobo camp. So it's not going to be top tier lumber, anything like that. So that's probably looking about the color that I want. And then when I mix this one with the nutmeg brown and black, it's going to give me a darker brown that is going to stand off of this greenish. And I'm not going to remove the awning or anything like that. I think I'm just going to paint that all as the same color along with the shade, because you know, I feel that that's what it would actually look like if it was painted in the real world. So let's apply some more of these, and this is where I'm going to switch out my paintbrush to the bigger one and get some of the coats in faster. And depending on what the base color is, it may take more than one coat. So there is no exact way that I measured out this color, just kind of by looks and feel really of what I was going for. So if I have to do another coat with more paint, I'm just going to have to guess on that one too. It may be the same shade, it may be a little off, but you just roll with it. I like to get it all covered and then go back and brush to try to really bring out some of the grain. And then all of these I'm going to paint too, and just if I just puts another coat down. And what I did find that sometimes on this plastic stuff, just the brown by itself doesn't really like to cover very well, but it'll cover okay over another color. So if I painted all that and then I go over, like, this is almost like a knapsack, like cloth material that I would think would be, it's either going to end up brown or black, but I'm just going to paint over it with this initial color, and then if I decide to do brown, then I already have my base coat. Black's going to cover just fine, so I really don't have to worry about that. And then these are the steel plates. I'm still just going to paint over them, because then when this all dries and then I go over it with the grays and fill in the details, and I don't have to worry about missing anything or not having anything covered. So and looking at this, after I've painted it, I can see that it blends in a little bit too well, so I'm probably going to do that with the nutmeg and black mixture, but still there, I want to have it completely covered, so it's all going to be one coat. When I was doing the rail building, I was kind of leery about doing that because I didn't want to ruin it, and was a little bit nervous. But trust you me, just trust the process. It might not look like it, but it's going to turn out just fine, and that looks good. So now we're just going to let this dry, and we'll be back. So after we've let everything dry, it could need another coat. So I went ahead and mixed up some more paint. It's kind of close, so we're just going to see. But this is a great layer for the base. And I was kind of setting everything on while this was drying. I painted the roof that way. It would be one less thing that we got to paint. And I'm probably going to paint inside here. You can still see that it's gray, so I'm probably going to paint it black, just so when you're looking in, it doesn't show through that it's gray. Now this is the next day. I didn't realize how late it was getting last night. My daughter wanted to run some trains, so it pushed this a little bit further back. But let's get back into it. Same as before. We're going to set this over here because we're going to use that for... Now it's not going to take as much paint to cover up on the second coat, just because we've got that nice base layer down. And this brown does look just a little bit brighter. So we're going to mix just a little bit more black into it. I didn't want to put too much black because the black really overpowers. Which yesterday when I was mixing up some browns, I found that I put a shade too much black and it really overpowered the brown. So I had a couple different colors that I could choose from. But ultimately just decided that, you just got to play around with it. So I want to try to make it, matches the best I can. And yeah, this looks like it's a little closer to what our color was. So, and that's the beauty of it when you're customizing and, painting stuff by yourself. You can decide, hey, that looks good. I really like it. Or, hey, that doesn't look good. Let's change it up. So we're just going to wipe that off a little bit. Yeah, now adding a little bit of black, it's actually almost spot on with what our base color was. And now, since like I said before, I'm gonna paint the shutter and the little knapsack above the door. I'm gonna paint that a different color, so I'm not going to go over that with this color because it's going to get a second coat of lighter brown. But since there are a little bit finer details with the plate and all that stuff, I am going to paint those with the base just so I can make sure to get all the finer details. So I'm going to finish this up and we'll be right back. Now that we've got this dried, I went ahead and put some more paint in. And this is about how much black, because I want to dull these colors down. So we're going to the gas sign and the eat sign. So let's mix all these up. And I think what I'm going to do here is this brown can be for the other patches and stuff. I think I'm going to mix a new brown for that little cloth roll that's going above the door. So this one I added just a little bit of black. I think the one for the cloth, I think I'm going to add more black just to kind of dull it. Now you don't really need, I'm not going to use all of this paint, but you always have to start, especially when you're mixing with black, a little bit more paint, because the black really overpowers even just a little slight drop. So, but there again, only 60 or 70 cents a bottle. You can afford to waste a little bit. All right, so here's the colors that I'm going to accent everything with. I got this brown for the cloth going over the door. This brown is going to be for any patchwork that they did on the exterior and the shutter, any extra wood that they added. I got some gray that's going to go for the metal plates, and then some red and blue for the lettering. I got that eat sign, and I got the gas sign. So just to see what I feel like, maybe the gas, probably I'm going to do the red. The eat sign, I'll probably do the blue, and just see how it looks from there. And so first thing I'm going to start is we're going to do the metal plates, and I got my detail brush, and we're just going to go along and fill, and just got to take a little bit of time to try to stay this, these metal plates are real small, so we're just going and filling in. I like to work the edges first, and then fill in the middle. And then actually what I'm going to do here on the eat, instead of trying to get in each little crevice for the metal, I'm just going to completely paint over, and then after it dries, then I'll go back and letter it. but that way we're building all the layers up and making sure to get the background fully painted. I'm not overloading my paintbrush, just a little bit at a time, because I'm working in small areas. I want to make sure that not too much paint is getting put down and going off the edge and running over onto the background of the building. And then same thing with the gas. It looks like it's a metal sign with letters, so I'm just going to paint the whole thing and then go back in and put the letters down. And this looks like it probably is going to be almost like a metal corrugated piece. So give that a little touch. And realistically, this acrylic paint is pretty fast drying for what it is. You don't have to let it sit overnight to dry. I did on that first coat, like I said, just because it was a little bit later than what I realized when I started. So I didn't give myself enough time to get it done. So now that I'm pretty happy with that, and let's move on to the other side. All right. So doesn't really look like, so I mean, could be like a patch job right there, right there. So we'll probably put that brown on, maybe put the brown, that lighter brown around there, and then definitely on the front, we got some patches, and looks like on the side we don't really have a lot, but I am going to paint the shutter with a different brown just so it looks like it was some different wood than what was actually used to build the shack. going to start on, let's see, that side didn't have any, so we'll just start on the front. I would say that this was probably, added on after it was built. Maybe they did some repairs there, so put that as maybe a different color wood. And all in all, pretty happy with that. Like I said, I was just going for just a little bit different look, different shade of wood. So now we'll just go over. I'm going to go over everything that we did and put a second coat on it. All right, so I made a little bit of a color change. I went with a antique white for the cloth, and then the accents, kind of like leather straps, I'll take and do the detail brush. And then I went ahead and painted the red, and all in all, it's looking really good. Now I'm just going to do the gas and do the eat. I'm going to do those off camera just for the sheer fact of I got to have it real close to me. But I just want to show you, I mean, it's coming along really good. So I'm going to let that dry. I'm going to get these two signs done, and we'll let it dry. And then we will weather it and show you how it turns out. It's all dry and got the little accents on the the burlap. That was kind of what I was gonna go for. Now was maybe it was like a burlap sheet that they rolled up and then put the ties down. So, but all in all, it looks really good. Did the gas and the eat. Got the awning done. Added a little bit to the top of the smokestack, and now, I mean, perfectly honest, if we were depending on what look we were going for, we could just leave it like this. But I wanted it to match more along maybe my rail building here, and how it's nice and weathered, and just a little bit more grungy. So this is going to go along with another building that is going to be a hobo like village, and I'm going to do some like camping out, do a little fire, things like that. So I want to make it look less nice. So let me show you the cheat code that I was talking about to make that happen. Now we're going to take our burnt umber and our dabber and paper towel. So the way I achieve this is I was running out of spaces to mix my paint, so we're just going to go right in the middle and take the sponge applicator, dab some on it. It's going to be too much, and if you just put that on, it's going to cover too much area. So I take it and dry it out on the paper towel, and then now you can just quickly sponge it on, and it'll start looking like it's dirty and rusty. So we're just going to do that all around to all four sides and hit the roof too. Blend the corners, and then now we're going to move on to doing the roof. So, and since we're just doing a light coat, this weathering process dries really quick. So, and it's a tin roof, been out in the elements, so we're gonna go a little bit heavy on this. Make sure to do our corners and our edges. Around our smokestack. And call it good. So now we can put that on there, and looks like a nice grungy building. So that's our finished up building. I think it turned out, really nice, and it added a little bit of character to it. And, like I said, the burnt umber was something I found on Facebook that somebody did. Actually, it was in the RC community, and I thought that I would try to apply it into this one. And the car that I showed you earlier, that was the first one that I did it to. I was really happy with the way it turned out. So I decided I was going to carry it forward and try it with the building, with the rail shed. It turned out great. And honestly, I think it's just going to be a technique that I'm going to keep in my playbook and continue using, because time and time again, it showed me that weathering isn't as big a feat as one would think. I spent a lot of time trying to discover, what technique I wanted to go with. And it was kind of the thing that I went through with my mountain. I did a bunch of research, and I think I overwhelmed myself. And when I stripped everything out and just went to the basics and then just tried it, it actually ended up being a lot easier than what intended to be. So that's kind of what I wanted to make this video about. Just a short, quick one of walking through on how I make my buildings, how I weather my buildings. And this is a cheap plasticville kit. I think that I had $28 in it from eBay. It came as a 4-piece kit, and all the buildings are going to end up getting painted this way. It came with some outhouses that I'm going to put up in the camping scene there, and one more building for the hobo scene, and then I'm going to make that rail building, probably put a fence around it and put it trackside. Let me know down in the comments, is there a different way that you would have done it? And is there an easier way, or is there different color paint that you would have used? I'm all for learning. I'm all for expanding my techniques, and there's going to be plenty of buildings that I do in the future. So any little thing that I can learn, going forward, I would like to keep that in mind. So if you like what you saw, give me a like, give me a subscribe, and let's ride the rails together.